Bozzuto found itself at a crossroads many years ago. We had grown from a small company that had a lot of touch points with our employees. Our geography was relatively small. And so consistency across our portfolio, which is critical to our brand, was not as much of a challenge. Fortunately, as the business grew, the opportunity to have those touch points, to have those personal engagements with our employees, to ensure that the vision, the culture, the brand of Bozzuto was being consistently executed for our customers, that customer experience was the same at each of our properties, that became more and more of a challenge. And so we began a search, and we were really looking for a tool, a technology, ideally, that would allow us the opportunity to ensure that the vision, that the brand, that the customer experience was being executed across our entire portfolio, from Boston to Miami. But the other piece of that was we didn't want a checklist, and we didn't want an inspection tool where employees felt that they were being graded or judged. We wanted a technology that would assist them in that process, that would give them information and knowledge and on-demand response to how something is supposed to look and feel, and what does Bozzuto mean to us. We considered building something internally and looked at the costs and the technology and the heavy lift that would involve. And we looked at a couple of additional workflow systems that are perhaps not necessarily associated with the real estate industry. And many of them carried 7-figure price tags, which frankly were a non-starter for us as an organization. And that's when we came across Leonardo 24/7. Leonardo is customizable, but also built for our industry. And so it was a tool that solved for us the consistency issue. It allowed us a vehicle with which to train our employees and to engage with them as they needed, on demand, from a phone, from an iPad, from wherever they were. At any time, we were able to touch our employees again, this time just through a very convenient technology. So we were trying to solve for our customers and our employees an elevated sense of connection to our culture, our brand, our experiential proposition, and Leonardo facilitated that. There have been a couple pleasant surprises, and I say pleasant surprises in terms of working with Leonardo because in real estate, surprises are typically not a good thing. The surprise in working with Leonardo has been the human piece. A lot of technology companies have a great product and they have a great sales pitch. And then when you execute that product and you need feedback, you need to change something, you want to have a dialogue about how a particular process works and how it should work for your organization, there's not a human at the end of that feedback loop that's either A, willing, or B, able to make those changes. Leonardo, for us, has been the exact opposite. It's a human product that happens to be a technology. We've been able to fully customize within the parameters of the software so that our message, not necessarily Leonardo's message, is what's being delivered. It's being delivered in Leonardo's vehicle. And that's been an awesome surprise. That has been the piece that has allowed us as an organization to embrace it and roll it out to 2,500 employees. So, one of our biggest concerns anytime we adopt a new technology, but certainly something that's going to touch all of our field employees, is adoption and accountability. And so we worked closely with our Leonardo team on developing a communication plan to build excitement, to explain the why so that people understood that, again, this wasn't a way of grading them. This isn't a report card tool. This was a tool to help them do their job better, easier, faster, more consistent. The adoption piece of the puzzle really starts at the top. And I think leadership has to embrace it. And we did as a company. We understood the tool. We knew the problem we were solving for. And with Leonardo, we built that communication plan. We started talking about it early and often. We talked about it in our regional team meetings. We talked about it at our service manager retreat. We talked about it in ways where people were able to ask questions. This wasn't a forced initiative, but really the adoption of a solution to a lot of problems, some of which we knew we had and some of which we're discovering that we're solving through the tool. The training with Leonardo was excellent. With our disparate locations, sometimes getting everybody in a room together is just not possible. And we were able, through Zoom and through webinars, to facilitate trainings across the East Coast in a very easy and effective format. We were able to touch all of those people, answer all of those questions. And at the end of the day, when we launched Leonardo, there wasn't a person who didn't understand what it was, why it was, and how we intended to use the tool. In our search process for a solution, Leonardo really stood out in a couple of ways. First and foremost was the people part of it. The interaction that we had with the Leonardo team, from the technology to the sales team, was exceptional. It was really focused on solving our problems as opposed to selling a product. And because the tool is so customizable, because it isn't an out-of-the-box solution as much as it is a solution that can grow and change with your organization's needs, it really allowed us as a company to embrace it versus a lot of the competitors who frankly had a product that was stringent and had limitations, and we weren't able to have the conversations about, well, what if and could we? With Leonardo, the what ifs and could we's were always answered with a yes. While it is Leonardo's tool, it is certainly Bozzuto's product at this point. You know, the implementation of any new technology can be a challenge. And I think one issue people have is they expect a new solution to roll out on day one and to just immediately work. We built an adoption and implementation program with Leonardo that had multiple stages and lots of checkpoints along the way. We did not want to force this on our employees, but we wanted them to be part of the process. So in our rollout, we built in time for feedback, for question and answer sessions, for the employees who were touching the product to help inform what it should and could look like. So instead of just rolling out the software and telling everybody, hey, we've turned it on, start using it, we created an implementation timeline that allowed us to take steps to start utilizing those pieces that were perhaps easy to adopt immediately, and then introducing different components as the employees got more and more comfortable and more used to the fact that this was part of every day. This wasn't a once a week check-in. This wasn't a once a month. This wasn't an inspection digital form. This was part of every day of doing business. So with adoption for us, we saw success by frankly not overestimating the immediate impact and rollout, but instead breaking it down into bite-sized pieces that allowed the employees time to get used to it and allowed us time to listen and to use that feedback to even improve the tool from where we started. So that does feel like a heavy lift. It feels like if you're doing all of those things, that's all you're doing. And the reality is that the Leonardo team did so much of the heavy lifting. From the training and the implementation and the stuff that has to occur in the background to make the program as special as it can be, That was all on Leonardo's side. Our side of it was communication, and the communication with Leonardo was seamless. So we were able to talk on a regular basis. They were looking at our adoption statistics. They were providing us feedback on how the tool was being used. And we were able to combine that with our experience in the field to ensure that that was not a heavy lift on anybody. Nobody had to stop their day job to make Leonardo 24/7 work for Bozzuto. Change management is a challenge for any organization. And there's always going to be a portion of your employee base, no matter how well-meaning, that will probably resist change. They feel like their day is already full and this is just one more thing. The way we worked through that was twofold. One was early communication and communicating often about how this was a tool to help, not another thing to do. The second piece is, frankly, we did not make it optional. This was going to be the tool that we adopted as a company to ensure consistency. And as such, it was our expectation as an organization that it would to be touched every day. And we made that clear as well. I think with change management, if something's optional, by default, there's going to be a portion of your employees that will opt not to use it. By making it non-optional, but not punitive, we were able to ensure adoption across our portfolio and really allow the employees to experience that, yes, indeed, this was going to be a lift and not a burden. The reality is we had a half dozen solutions out there to try and accomplish this sort of collaborative consistency, and many of them were failing. One of the beauties with Leonardo is we've been able to eliminate a lot of those spreadsheets and additional software packages and consolidate all of our efforts, both operationally and on the maintenance side, into the Leonardo platform. I think when we started with Leonardo, one of our misunderstandings early in the process was that this was going to be a tool for maintenance, that this was going to be a maintenance checklist automation tool. The reality is that if you're looking for consistency, if you're looking for that experience for your customer, that brand to be carried out, this is a tool for all employees. This is as important to the sales and service associate and the property manager as it is your service manager or your maintenance tech that's out there working in units. It really is a tool for the entirety of the team. If you're considering Leonardo 24/7, with any technology, you can come up with 100 reasons to say no. Too hard, too heavy of a lift, we don't have someone dedicated to this, it doesn't work for our organization. I would challenge you to find the one reason to say yes. And in this case, that reason is simple. Leonardo 24/7 is a tool that's built around your operations, your organization, and it can allow you to take that next step as a company.